when the opportunity came to go into the line of fire, to directly engage the enemy, to go out and save Calvin Harrison, he didn't flinch. Mark did what we all wish we would do in combat, and he did it. And I think there's a special place for people who are that selfless.
Hey everybody, this is Thad Forrester with Patriot to the Core. Thank you for tuning in again to this episode. This is number 76, and this is kind of a special episode as we commemorate the 10-year anniversary of my brother Mark's death in Afghanistan. I wanted to do something a little bit different and kind of dig into the notification. Our family had a simultaneous notification between our parents and me at Mark's request, and so I know that Mark's leadership was very concerned that someone wouldn't be home and Mark's desires wouldn't be met. But turns out we were home. It happened as good as it possibly could have. So General Armfield is here to talk about that and how they planned for that, how they rehearse, how the people were chosen who came to our homes, how they watched the house for hours until Dad got home from work. And then they kind of gave him 10 minutes, and then boom, they knock on the door, and within about a minute, they knock on my door in Tuscaloosa. So General Armfield gives us some great insight into the notification and also just the uniqueness of it in the special tactics world and how it's not how everyone in the military does it. And it's not how the regular big Air Force does it either. He also shares his thoughts on Mark's final act on the earth. And as I've been preparing for this September 29th, 2020 date, I've been reflecting on just the great people that came from near and far to support us at that time of Mark's death. You know, he was killed on a Wednesday on September 29th, and his funeral was not until the following Thursday. So there was quite a bit of time that lapsed there, and so we had just a crazy amount of people coming to the house every day. We had food sent from all over. I don't even know where it all came from, but these were individuals, these were churches, these were organizations, so many good people that wanted to help. And most people probably didn't know how to help, so they did what they thought they could. And we were so grateful. It took many people to manage the food, to manage the phone, to plan, of course, the funeral. We had officers there that helped with the Air Force. Barry and Sasha, just good as gold, worked their butts off, took such good care of us. And we had people calling us saying, hey, you can come, we would like to cut your hair. They knew there was a lot of military at our home. Please let us cut your hair. Or they didn't charge my family for dry cleaning. I mean, there was just so many good people. Cards, gifts, all types of just great gestures. And then you throw in the Patriot Guard riders and how great they were. Now I document them pretty well in my book, but also what I wanted to say is the night I got home, I drove up from Tuscaloosa after I was notified. I got to Mom and Dad's. Lots of people were there at that time, and Barry and Sasha were on the phone making arrangements for getting us to Dover Air Force Base for the Dignified Transfer. And at the same time, great family friend Bo Knight was on the phone working out his own plans for that. I don't know whose idea it was, but I guess it was Bo's. He didn't want our family to have to deal with the regular commercial travel. And I think what it was is the Air Force was going to cover tickets for 3 family members, I believe, to get us to Dover. Well, we kind of have a bigger family than that, but what happened is Bo and many other great people in the area, they got together a private plane that was there at the airport in Haleville and flew us to Dover. So Mom, Dad, and I, and then Barry and Sasha flew to Dover. We landed straight at Dover Air Force Base. I know there were some folks there on the ground that were confused because they weren't used to seeing private aircraft land there. Mike Bailey, God bless you for piloting us, taking us up there and back. And for letting me sit in the front, coming back, that was pretty cool to see, to be able to see multiple cities from way up high that late that night, and to hear all the air chatter from the different airports. But this allowed for Joseph to fly commercially from San Antonio and meet us there at Dover, and then he flew back with us on the plane. So that was just another lifesaver to be able to drive 10 minutes down the road, if it's even that far, from mom and dad's house to the airport, and then to land there late that night and to get home, because we were obviously dead tired from all the activities and the emotions. So General Armfield does a great job here of explaining what happened. This is very interesting to me, and I think it will be to most of my family. The rest of you, it's I don't know, but it's definitely educating, and it's a topic that's you don't find much information about. But Gwyn Armfield recently completed nearly 3 decades of service in the Air Force, retiring as a brigadier general. He now owns RGA Consulting Group, where he advises a number of clients on leadership, risk management, and technology development. And during his time in the military, he served as the U.S. Central Command Vice Director for Strategy and Plans, Deputy Commanding General for U.S. and Coalition Special Operations Forces in Afghanistan, and commanded Air Force Special Tactics Forces at the squadron, group, and wing level. It was an honor to have him on the show. We've met him multiple times now. He spoke at the Spaghetti Supper in 2019, the night before Mark's annual race and walk. And I know we saw him again at the University of Alabama at the unveiling of Mark's bust a few years ago. So sit back, and I hope you enjoy. Thanks for listening. All right, General Armfield, so the reason why I wanted to have you on is I just went out and spoke to a group at the Enlisted Association of the National Guard of Utah. And it was like their annual conference. I haven't spoken about Mark in a formal setting for several years, and so I started preparing for that a few months ago. And preparing for that, and then the 10-year mark of his death coming up kind of made me realize, man, I'd like to get some insight into the notification. There may not be many people who are interested in this, but I know that my family is. So I was like, I thought General Armfield will have some good insight. And then I asked Joseph, and he said, and I didn't even say your name, and he told me, talk to General Armfield. So thank you for being on the show, first of all.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I mean, the Forrester family, you guys are special to us, and always will be. And we've got an Alabama connection through my son who graduated there as well. So I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, so will you tell us, in September of 2010, what was your title and your role within the Air Force? Yeah,
so I was the commander of the 720th Special Tactics Group, which was the overall headquarters in command of all U.S.-based combat controllers and special operation pararescuemen in our special operation weather teams, organized within different squadrons across the U.S. Of course, Mark being assigned to the 21st Special Tactics Squadron out of Pope Air Force Base. So they were one of a number of squadrons that were part of my group. So to put it in perspective, Mark's squadron commander or unit commander was Lieutenant Colonel Parks Hughes. I was Parks' commander, and then my commander was Lieutenant General Donnie Worcester, the commander of Air Force Special Operations Command, which is the Air Force Major Command for all Special Operations Forces in the Air Force. And then he answers to the Chief of Staff and the Secretary of the Air Force. So on September 29th, how did you find out about Mark's death, and about what time did you find out? Yeah, it was, we may want to back up a little bit and just talk about the month of September and all that was going on within Special Tactics then. But so on that day, on the 29th, I usually get up around 4:30 in the morning, and on certain days I'll go in early and we'll work out as a group. But on this day, on the Wednesday, the 29th of September, I'd gotten up around 4:30 in the morning and had done some personal time, and then done my physical training. I think I'd gone for a run and lifted some weights there at home. And usually I spend about an hour working out on the days I don't go in to work out with the team. And I had eaten breakfast. My wife had cooked me breakfast, and the kids were getting ready to go to school. And I usually leave right around 7 to drive to Hurlburt Field. And just as I was headed out the door, I got a call from Lieutenant Colonel Hughes, from Parks Hughes. He was downrange in Afghanistan and was making the initial notification, back to the U.S. that Mark had been killed. So I clearly remember standing in my little breakfast alcove talking to Parks, and we having casualties was not uncommon to us. And so phone rang and talked to Parks, and he goes, "Hey, sir, this one's going to hurt." He goes, "This one's going to hurt us a lot." and we lost Mark Forrester, and he was killed in a ruse gun, and he went through the details of it. So I think this was, maybe an hour and a half or so. If I did the time right on this, I think, Mark was was engaging the enemy for the last time there around 5:30 Central Time. So this was about 90 minutes later. Is when Parks called me, and then I initiated the call to General Wooster, who then calls the Chief of Staff and the Secretary, informs them, and we then begin our notification process. I'll stop there, and let's talk about the notification process maybe, and like how we did that. Because we kind of did it uniquely, and I think the bigger Air Force didn't always appreciate how we did it and the amount of resources we put against it. But General Wooster appreciated it, and our families, as you guys know, appreciate the extra effort that we put into our casualty notifications. And I think that was a good investment of resources. And as I counsel other folks now on how to do this, that's what I tell them. I'm like, hey, you got to go big on this. And so Parks and I's follow-on conversation after we got to the details of the initial incident report was how we were going to do the notification. And so he had the information, and we're very conscious to have next of kin information readily available. So we knew that Mom and Dad were going to be up in Haleyville, Alabama. We did a quick map study, and we knew that we had two of our Chief Master Sergeants at the Senior NCO Academy at Montgomery, Alabama, down the road, they were getting ready to finish up. They were the nearest special tactics members to Haleyville. And so it was early in the morning, so we were able to get Calvin and Sean on the phone. They briefed their leadership there at the school, who cleared them off to go help do notification preparation. That kind of got things going. Now, I'll stop there, and let's talk some more kind of about how that day played out.
Yeah, so I know that you had to get two teams. You had two already in Alabama that were about 3.5 hours away, Calvin and Sean. Sounds like you flew maybe Logren or someone left from Florida and went to North Carolina. You had to get a plane to Haleyville. So
sure. So just to back up for a little bit here, I think it's worth contextually just thinking through what had happened in the weeks prior to Mark's death. So Mark was killed on the 29th. And if you go back 13 days to the 16th of September, Senior Airman Danny Sanchez from the 23rd Special Tactics Squadron, which was killed in a roughly similar location to where Mark was. So Danny was killed on the 16th. We notified his mom, Yvette, who lives out in El Paso, about, obviously that tragic loss. And then the following week, the 22nd, 23rd, we had Danny's funeral. So we had returned back to Florida from Texas on the 24th, and this was 5 days later. So a different squadron, but underneath the same forward command. So Parks Hughes had command of all Special Tactics Forces underneath the 21st SDS, and then a part of that unit part of the 23rd was augmenting him. Yeah, so Danny and Mark were both serving underneath the same command there, but we had just finished with Danny's funeral and all that goes with that. And then basically just, 3 business days later, Mark is killed. So the way we like to do this is, we like one of our own to notify the family. And that requires a lot of logistics. And the Air Force's request to us is they said, hey, we'll allow you all to do that. Because the normal process is that the nearest Air Force installation will send a notification team out to, whichever family, where the family's location is, and they'll do it. So you don't know who you're going to get and kind of how that's going to go, and they really don't have a lot of details. They'll just do the initial notification. We don't like the way that turns out. And so General Wooster's agreement with me was that if we could get a team there to the family quicker than the Air Force could, we'll be allowed to do it ourselves. So we had leveraged capabilities within Air Force Special Operations Command to do the notification for Yvette Sanchez. So we had used some ASOC aircraft that were doing training missions, and they were able to legally, through the rules and everything, transport a notification team to notify Danny's mom. So this is 2 weeks later, and I called the I called the wing commander up who had the aircraft we needed. And I'm like, hey, I hate to tell you, but I need to borrow another airplane. And here's what's going on. And here's the locations we need to go to. I need to launch out of Harbor Field, fly up to Pope, pick up the notification team, and fly them down to Haleyville. And I explained, hey, we're going to have a Chief Master Sergeant there, combat controller, Calvin Mark, and Sean are going to meet the aircraft. They'll transport the notification team, because usually it's the squadron commander, or the acting squadron commander in this case, that does notification. So we needed to get that person there to do the notification. That was Major Ed Logren. So we received a little bit of pushback, and this is like, well, I'm not sure we can do it. And I'm like, okay, hey, roger that, thanks. So I called. I worked for the 3-star MAJCOM commander, General Wooster. His deputy is just a great Air Force officer and warfighter named O.G. Mannon. Major General O.G. Mannon was the vice commander of AFSOC at the time. O.G. and I both are from North Carolina. We share a little bit of Tar Heel blood between us. And so I called Major General Mannon up, and I'm like, hey, sir, look, here's the deal. I need to get a team, from Pope to Haleyville. I've got a team on the ground to receive them, but I'm getting some pushback. He's like, stand by. I'll call you back in 5 minutes. And so he basically calls the commander of the flying organization and said, hey, you're going to find a way to support this next of kin notification, and that's the most important mission you've got all day today. So about 7 minutes later, I got a phone call from the flying unit commander saying, okay, hey, I've got guidance. I'm going to support you. I'm like, I thought you would. I appreciate that. So here's what we're going to do. And so we got everything in motion, and got an aircraft up to Pope, and they were doing their training and everything along the way, and got the team on the ground there in Haleyville. And Calvin was there to meet him. He had kind of scoped everything out there in the local area. So we very closely track this at the group headquarters. We've got a team of folks, a small group of folks that are tracking every single event. We've got a checklist we're going down. One of which is, hey, the next of kin notification team is on the ground. Hey, they're moving to the house, and a lot of things have to be synchronized, because there's a lot of things that don't happen until the next of kin have been notified and we have confirmation of that. So really, everything's kind of kept incredibly close hold until we know the family's been notified. So we're tracking this, and I think they go to your parents' house. I know they go to your parents' house. They ring the doorbell. Your mom's there, but she doesn't answer. And I think that was providential that she didn't. And then you're like, ooh, okay, well, this is kind of the contingency plan. Is when, hey, there's no next of kin there. We really don't know how to contact them. So you kind of have to just watch the house. And if I remember right, I think Calvin notified the sheriff's department and let them know what was going on. So we were pretty sure Haleyville would notice a bunch of strangers showing up and hanging out, in the vicinity of your house, your parents' house there, and we didn't want the cops rolling in on it. So yeah, I think we notified them ahead of time what was going on, and then I think Calvin was up in the woods, if I remember right. He overlooking the house, like with some binos, until your dad came home, and we were getting, I think, updates every half hour. He was calling in, giving us updates, and we got the call, hey, your cars arrived. Looks like Mr. Forrester's walked into the house. We're going to give him 10 minutes, and then we're going to go do the notification. That was kind of the events of that day. And if I remember right, I think that was in the mid to late afternoon is when they were actually able to establish contact with your parents. And then we synchronized it so that Andrew Bear, Captain Andrew Bear, and Chief Master Sergeant Sean Gleffy, then did what we tried to do as a near simultaneous notification to you and to your parents. And I believe we were somewhat, within the same time frame doing that.
Yeah, it's incredible. Do you know Sasha Qualley and Barry Crawford, who ended up, and maybe you can explain their roles, but they had on civilian clothes. And yes. I think they the ones that were driving by the house. I know our neighbor stopped them at some point. Do you know what happened there?
I don't. They were part of the team that came in with Ed Logren. And the way we do this is that the commander does the notification. And, very scripted way we do this, very, very scripted. So there's the notification team It's usually at least two people, and it's the